Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to you all. I hope you can hear me fine. My name is Namita Datta, and I manage a global program that's called Solutions for Youth Employment. It's based here at the World Bank, and it brings together quite a large number of partners. Um, we have about 44 NGOs, large NGOs they were selected because they're all experimenting with something innovative in the area of youth employment. We also have about 35 40 private companies, leading technology companies, most of them, but also in other sectors that are part of our network. We have youth that are part of our network, and they're also part of our board and are equally participate in the strategic decisions that we make in the partnership. And of course, we have 150 operations of the World Bank and their program teams that are spread across the World Bank Group in different global practices that are also part of this network, and part of the work that we do is to share the ongoing work that is happening in youth employment by different partners and learn from each other. So I'm really delighted in that context that today we are going to be talking about mentoring. Mentoring is a really important part of the design of any youth employment program. I think anybody who's worked with youth employment knows that we're always trying to figure out how do we help young people transition from education, from schools, colleges, or TVET institutions into their first jobs. And usually that transition is tricky and is challenging for youth. And if a mentor holds your hand and helps you through that transition, the likelihood of your being successful in your first job is that much higher. But how does one really design that mentorship? Should it be one-on-one? Should it be one-to-many? How long should it be? What should it be about? And also, how does one do it at scale? These are things that all of us in our day jobs grapple with when we do anything that concerns youth employment. So I'm really delighted today that John Browning and his team and other panelists who are going to speak about this will share their work. John Browning is the CEO of the Global Mentorship Initiative. He founded it, and it's something that came out of the Rockefeller's Digital Jobs for Africa initiative. So he'll talk to us about this model and the work that they've been doing, how they structure it, some of the nuts and bolts of their work. And then Justin Tenutai, I'm so delighted he's with us today. He works with Microsoft. He will bring in the mentor perspective. Like, what does it mean for a corporate employee or staff member to be a mentor? And what do they see? Why would somebody spend some time mentoring youth when you have a busy job? And I'm also delighted that we have Cynthia Matthews today. She's currently a congressional fellow at the US Senate, but she's been a mentee of this program. So we would love to hear what's the mentee side of this equation, and what was her experience being a mentee. And then I'm delighted that Nadia Asmal is also with us in this panel. Nadia is right now at the Southern New Hampshire University, and together with John's initiative, they actually partnered and reached out to refugees, people living in refugee camps, with their mentorship of. So I'm delighted, and I'm going to hand it over to John to share with us his model. And I welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you can all keep yourselves muted as the presentation goes on, but please feel free to put in questions and comments in the chat box. I'll try and keep on top of that. And towards the end, we'll open up for a discussion. So over to you, John, and a warm welcome to you.
Great. Thank you, Namita. And I'm just really glad to be here today. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about some very positive things that are happening for students who are just getting started in their career path. And we're so grateful to the World Bank and for S4YE for making this opportunity today. So thank you. So as Namita said, I'm John Browning, and I'm the CEO, but most importantly, the Chief Mentor for Global Mentorship Initiative. And I know we have just a short time together and a fair amount to cover, but I want to make sure that we do leave plenty of time at the end for discussions and questions. And I promise you that we'll get to that. So today we're going to share how our mentorship model is hopefully making a difference in the lives of a lot of underserved youth, and in the process making the planet maybe just a little bit smaller using technology to connect these students with mentors around the world. We're also going to talk about how to design a large-scale mentorship program, and hopefully you can benefit from some of the lessons that we've learned along the way as well. So, and before we go any further, stop sharing here for a second. Before we go any further, I want to just mention a couple of folks that Namita did who will be talking. First, though, Chad Fuller is our Chief Operating Officer. He's on the call. He's not speaking today, but he is here to help us with any questions that might come through the chat line. If you have a question during the talk and you just want a quick answer, pop that into chat, and Chad will respond. Otherwise, we're glad to take a lot of questions at the end or any kind of discussion that you'd like to have. As Namita mentioned, I'm just delighted to have the three folks with us today to speak about their experiences with mentorship. Justin is the general manager for HR at Microsoft, 17 years of experience in this field. He's a mentor with GMI as well as a corporate partner. And he's been so generous with his time. He actually serves on our leadership council as well. And he's going to share a little bit about how the view from the mentor perspective and about how mentorship programs like this can really take off and be successful. Sanithya, we're just delighted to have her. She's from Cleveland, Mississippi. She's a Delta State University student. As Namita said, she's just down the street from the World Bank in the U.S. Capitol. And just a note, her first day in Washington, D.C. Just happened to be January 6th of this year. So she's going to be sharing with us how students will benefit from the mentorship program. And then our partnership with SNHU, with Nadia, has just been wonderful with the global education movement. And we're on a path. We hope to have 500 refugees in our mentorship program actually living in refugee camps by the end of this year. And there's ways that everybody can get involved in that effort. So before I hand it over to Justin, I just want to take a couple of minutes and share just a little bit more about GMI, and just so we get us all on the same page. So our goal is to prepare college students for good jobs and provide them with the tools and guidance needed to be successful in their careers. And we do this through a structured, online, one-to-one mentorship with a business professional. We're growing at a pretty fast pace right now, and so I'll share some of our strategies for how to make a mentorship program succeed. So just to take a step back, the GMI mission originated from my time at Microsoft, and I literally stumbled onto this incredible journey that eventually led us to GMI. So it started when I was introduced back in 2013 to Mamadou Biteye, who at the time was leading the Rockefeller's Digital Jobs Africa initiatives and the initiatives for Africa in general. And over the years, he's become a great friend. And I think he's on the call today. He was going to try to make it. He's also on the steering committee for S4YE. And I'm glad to say he's also a mentor now for GMI. So the Rockefeller Initiative took me to Africa for the first time, and it literally changed my career in midstream. And it was, you think about those times that make an impact on one's life. And for me, it was those one-on-one moments with students, starting in Nairobi, starting in Johannesburg, and that they left me the most impact, that we wanted to try to do something different. And so I got some firsthand experience over a dozen trips to Africa in the past 8-7 years. And I got to see firsthand the potential for Africa's youth, but for many, they have very few career prospects. So long story short there, I ended up leaving my job at Microsoft the following year, and I began partnering with the Rockefeller Foundation. And we created a program called Impact Sourcing, and it's designed to create job opportunities working with corporate partners in underserved communities. Now, these underserved communities could be anywhere in the world, including in the United States. A lot of impact sourcing work is done in the United States now. But yeah, change my slide here. So what I wanted to say was creating jobs in an underserved community, though, is just not enough. Sometimes for students, there's a soft skills gap in their readiness for these jobs. And this is what we discovered that as we were trying to bring more jobs into communities, the job recruiters and local companies would say, you know, it's great that you're doing this, but unfortunately, not all of these jobs are going to the people or the young people that you really want to target for these jobs. And this is because many of them just haven't had the same opportunities as more privileged students. For example, just having a computer where they live with access to the internet. And when I talk about skills, I'm not talking about the specific job skills like accounting or software development. This is about the soft skills needed to land a job and to be successful in the work environment. So as a result, while we were creating jobs in these areas, they weren't always going to the young people that we wanted most to benefit from them. So we launched a Global Mentorship Initiative to help fill this gap. And we have a very specific area of focus. And we'll talk about why that's so important a little bit later when we get to the tips and lessons learned. We focus on the transition window from school to the job world. We're just starting now to see what can be achieved with this group of young people who are most concerned. They're graduating in their final year. They're thinking about what prospects, if any, they have for a good career job. And this is the group that we target. And we're starting to see some good results by actually having our mentees employed by some of our sponsors. We're working on that for this year now. And it's a global effort in the United States and South Africa and many other locations. So, you know, a word about the COVID-19 and the pandemic situation. Obviously, we were very worried making a major launch of the program last year, just about 12 months ago. And we took off very quickly, though. And what we found is, well, we were worried we wouldn't have enough mentors to sign up for the program, that everybody was so focused on pandemic issues and employment. But in fact, it's been just the opposite. We've had more issues actually getting enough students to meet the mentor demand, mostly because of the lockdowns at colleges. So at the moment, Namita, we've grown from 2 colleges to over 20 locations around the world. We have students in 5 countries in Africa, and we're going to talk more about that with Nadia in a minute. We're in Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Jamaica, and then we have several locations in the United States. And we're adding about 1 to 2 new colleges a month to the program to provide students for us. Because it's really only our ability to scale that keeps us from making an even bigger impact. But that's enough for me right now. I'm going to come back a little bit later and provide details about how we launched the program, where we're going, and just address all your questions. But now I'm going to hand it off to JT, and he's going to share his experience as a mentor and with Microsoft.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Just as John said, I work in Microsoft Human Resources. Last summer, obviously, there's a lot going on in the world, and I was doing my own sort of reflecting on what I could do to help. It was just, I think, good timing, but I received a mail from John about a mentorship program that worked with underserved student communities to prepare them for the business world. In reflection, I've had the benefit of mentors and sponsors throughout my life. Growing up in school, university, during my career. And I've learned a ton from coaching and hearing stories of what to do, what not to do. And frankly, sometimes I think I take that for granted and how much it shaped me and how much it's had an impact in helping me be successful in the business world. And so I signed up for the program. Now, the GMI program educates and readies students with important tips and expectations with entering the workforce. Things like the importance of building a network, how LinkedIn and other tools can be powerful platforms to do research, stay aware of job opportunities, create a personal brand, and engage with companies, hiring managers, and recruiters. There's soft skills needed in the business world, things like preparing, communication, collaboration, and this starts during the job search itself. Writing down and updating a career plan, and tips on how to make your resume and LinkedIn profile stand out. After a couple of conversations with my mentee, he articulated a longer term goal of being an entrepreneur. And we talked about how the corporate setting could prepare him for skills that were very applicable to running his own business, which is where we decided to focus on finance and marketing opportunities. These conversations and really developing a career plan were really helpful for him in gaining clarity. Setting expectations on what a job search is, what it entails, how to approach it. Not everyone understands that searching for a job is a full-time job in itself. And so carving out the time, setting up resilience in the face of a lack of maybe response or rejection from hiring managers is also important. Putting your best foot forward in an interview. So considering the stories you want to use, practicing to tell them so they're already in your memory bank during the interview. And after getting in the door, how companies evaluate employees and how to continue to thrive as an employee. So the GMI model made it really easy for me as a mentor to ramp up. It's a set curriculum of 14 sessions. There's detailed content and template messages, and you can follow the standard flow of things or add your personal touch to it. Now, the important thing is the engagement itself, your own personal examples from your experience, listening and learning from your mentee's stories, their strengths, their development areas, their aspirations. You really don't need to be an expert. You just need to decide that you're going to make the time and lean in. Namita referenced it about why would an employee decide to be a mentor. The other thing is it's not just the mentee that takes something from this program. As a mentor, I've personally benefited. I've learned from my mentee. He's been a source of inspiration, working as an educator by day, studying for an MBA at night, balancing work, school, taking care of his family, and making time for a mentorship and a job search. So seeing that grit, resilience, drive is really inspiring to me personally. It's also further reinforced my commitment to GMI. I believe in the mission, and so I joined the advisory board, as John mentioned, because I see the opportunity to impact thousands, millions over time, both mentors and mentees, to create economic opportunity to those communities that just need a little jolt, that spark, like mentorship and upskilling to really thrive. And it's helped me learn about the role that I can play within Microsoft to help others, to make others aware of how to channel their energy to make a difference. So Microsoft is very committed to giving back to the community, and there's a lot of engagement from the employee base in giving back, in particular through mentorship. We have programs like Microsoft Teals that work with schools to provide mentorship and teaching to help get more students in tech. There's Microsoft Mentors, which is a program that trains up mentors and connects them to mentoring opportunities through program partners. And there's LinkedIn Coaches, which creates training and career conversations with job seekers, which has reached about 1.2 million job seekers through workshops and webinars. Now, more and more corporate organizations are putting emphasis on giving. Many are now incorporating it as a part of their core values and culture. And employees expect this from their companies. And so it's great to find that connected purpose. Offering mentorship opportunities through orgs like GMI connect that energy to serve and give back to, frankly, the immense need for our student mentee base to skill up and ready themselves for the business world. We'll tee up, as John mentioned, 1,000 mentorships this year. That's 1,000 students that will get that much closer to a life-changing job because of the time we've taken to train and to coach. And so from my perspective, it's an amazing opportunity for those students and their communities, and for a mentor like myself, and my learning journey as well. So at this point, I'll hand it off.
Okay. Thanks, Justin. Took me a minute to find my turn video on button here. So I'm just so grateful for Microsoft. They have given us, we're approaching 50 mentors right now that are Microsoft employees just in the past year that are active mentors. And we have much larger scale hopes in mind for this year. And as Justin mentioned, it's just about anybody can be a mentor to a student. Justin mentioned the the level of detail that goes into this planned, structured program, but you don't need to be an expert in any of this to be a great mentor to a student about this. And we'll talk about this in a little bit in the lessons learned, but we designed a program very much that could be run turnkey, guiding the student through using a mentorship model. And we give you the right questions to ask your student to prompt the right discussions. And basically you just guide the student and add your own real personal experiences in the business world, because it's that perspective that they really need in the program. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But now I'm just delighted to introduce Sanithya Matthews. I mentioned she's in DC for a few months right now. And what I didn't mention, though, is she's actually a student coordinator or student ambassador with us in Delta State University to help us with recruiting students. We find that having somebody in each college, wherever possible, a student who's been through the program, is just an excellent way to bring more enthusiasm to that college. So Sanithya can turn on your video, and we're glad to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sanithya Matthews, and I'm truly honored and thrilled to be here today to share my experience as a mentee within the Global Mentorship Initiative. So I am a native of Mississippi. I'm originally from West Point, Mississippi, which is about 15 minutes away from Mississippi State University. After graduating from high school, I decided to go to Delta State University for a number of reasons. One of the most prolific reasons is because it was very affordable, and I did not want to graduate college with tens and thousands in student debt. Even though Delta State is very affordable, it is located in one of the most impoverished areas in Mississippi, known as the Mississippi Delta. The unemployment rate there hits about 11%, so it's kind of hard for undergrads like myself to find entry-level jobs in our specific areas post-graduation. That's why I'm so glad that GMI partnered with Delta State to help fill that bridge to help our students be more prepared for the workplace. So my journey with GMI started in February of 2020 when John made his initial trip to Delta State to recruit juniors and seniors. However, at the time, I was still a sophomore. Before he left, he gave me his business card, and me being the eager student that I am, I immediately reached out to him. We exchanged a few emails, and then he gave me permission to go through the program as a sophomore. From that time, I knew my experience within GMI would be something very special. GMI is different to me because it gives students the advice from the career of an employer. And GMI also takes the extra step of pairing students with mentors. Not only do they get career tips, they also get a person to add into their network. GMI's material is very structured. They have modules teaching you the importance of soft skills in the workplace, how companies evaluate their employees. They have an extensive section talking about the job interview. They teach us about the SOAR method, and they give us tons of interview questions to practice with. What I gained most from the program was the importance of leveraging my LinkedIn. Before the GMI program, I had a LinkedIn, but nothing much was really on it. However, after going through the modules and with the support of my mentor, I was able to totally revamp my LinkedIn to the point where it is now, where I get about a part-time job or internship opportunity about every month. So as John said, I'm currently interning in the U.S. Senate for Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker. Some of my internship duties include making memos, providing daily press clips for my team, and pretty much anything else they ask me to do. Even though I cannot give GMI all of the credit for my internship in the Senate, I can say that going through GMI definitely gave me the confidence to even apply for it. And some of the tips that I learned in GMI are tips that I use daily to stand out in my internship. The most valuable part about GMI is that it helps students prepare for success in their first job post-college, which is the reason why most students even go to college in the first place. During my last year at Delta State, my goal is to enroll as many DSU students into the program so that they too can receive this enriching experience that I received through GMI. In the words of the famous actress Oprah Oprah Winfrey, a mentor is someone who allows you to see the higher part of yourself when sometimes it becomes hidden in your own views. And because I went through GMI, I am able to say that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunithia. That's wonderful, so I should say, Sunithia is still just finishing up her junior year, but we are just now starting to begin accepting job offers for her. So if you have something, then just send it to GMI. We'll make sure she gets it. I just have such incredible appreciation for Sunithia because she's been enthusiastic with the students, not just to get them into the program, but she actually conducts student orientations for our students as well, in Delta State and some other colleges here in the U.S. We wanted you to hear some perspective of students in the U.S., like from Sunithia, but we're also going to share some international perspective with Africa as well. And I'm just delighted to have Nadia Asmal joining us here. We've been partnering with SNHU for the past year. And it's just been wonderful, the students that she provides. I'm going to let her tell you all about that. So Nadia, are you ready to join?
Thanks so much, John. Well, let me start off by telling you a little bit about the Global Education Movement. So we're a program of Southern New Hampshire University, which brings bachelor's degrees and pathways to employment for refugees and other learners who wouldn't otherwise have access to higher education. And we launched this program back in 2017 and currently have about 1,500 students studying online from 5 countries. So we're in Rwanda, South Africa, Kenya, Malawi, and Lebanon. And our program isn't just about providing students with opportunities for higher education. It's also about providing them with the certifications and the skills to access meaningful employment. And that is, of course, where the Global Mentorship Initiative fits in. So I met John at the Global Impact Sourcing meeting a few months ago. And since then, we've enrolled over 70 of our graduates and students in the mentorship program. And I can honestly say that we have 70 plus success stories with this partnership. So many of our students are based, as you can see on the screen, in refugee camps that are very, very remote. And this lack of access to the world beyond the confines of the camp is really the #1 barrier that our students face in finding work. But the GMI program is really shifting that narrative. They're connecting our students with incredibly talented and incredibly well-connected mentors from all over the world. And these relationships are just opening up so many doors to our students. So it was really hard to narrow down to just a couple success stories. But John, if you flip the slide, I have 2 pictures. This is Joseph, and the next one is Al-Narjis, and I'm going a little out of order. So I'm going to talk about Al-Narjis first. She is a Syrian refugee living in Lebanon. And as of last month, she is a graduate of our program. And she recently landed an interview with a Boston-based architecture firm, which was super exciting, except for the fact that she is a healthcare management student with absolutely no experience in architecture. So also, Al-Narjis is super timid, and I think she's on this call. She's super timid and very quiet. And so I was a little bit nervous about the interview, but I actually got to sit in on it and I was totally blown away. She entered the interview and launched into this story about how she's been creative from childhood. And she managed to convince this architect that her background in healthcare management would somehow make her the perfect fit for this architect assistant position. And of course, it came as no surprise to me that during our debrief, she told me that it was her mentor that coached her through the interview process and helped her pitch herself in that way. And she landed the job. She started a couple weeks ago and is working with that architect in Boston. So the other part of the GMI curriculum and program, is obviously to help their mentees stand out in job applications. And so our students are standing out because of the preparation that they're doing on the back end with their mentors, but they're also standing out because they have personal advocates for their success. So the last thing that I want to say about the importance of this program, and I've touched on it a little bit in the last couple minutes, but it's just about the incredible difference that having someone in your corner can make. So about 99% of our students are first-generation college students. And in this way, not many of them have someone to ask those tiny questions to. So questions like, do you think that this job is a good fit for me? Hey, can you take a look at the byline on my resume? Or did I use this semicolon correctly? And I feel like it's these small conversations that allow you to succeed. And between the big curriculum that GMI offers in this 14-week program, those are the conversations that our students are having. And so this is where Joseph fits in. If you can flip to his slide, that's actually a picture of him at graduation last year with the president of the university. But Joseph is a Congolese refugee living in the Kakuma camp, which is in a very remote part of northwestern Kenya in the Turkana Desert. And when I was talking to Joseph recently, I was asking him about what his favorite part of the mentorship program was. And I kind of expected him to say like the LinkedIn prep, like Cynthia was talking about, or maybe the interview coaching or the resume refinement. But what he told me was his favorite part was having someone to talk to about his career dreams. He said he had never really thought about what he wanted in a job. And it was conversations with his mentor that provoked those conversations. And he's super passionate about refugee advocacy, but has always been a teacher and was pursuing all these jobs in education. And it was at his mentor's encouragement to apply for and recently landed a job at a refugee advocacy company in Nairobi called the Amahoro Coalition. So those are just two small stories, but I hope that they demonstrate kind of how personalized each mentorship relationship is and how each mentor helps their mentee overcome these individualized, localized, sometimes very large challenges that our students are facing in these 5 countries. So thank you so much, John, for this partnership. And I hope that it will continue to grow because every single student that goes through this program just has the most rave reviews.
That's just fantastic. I mean, this is just it's an emotional part of the program because literally every week and as you said, we're relatively new into our partnership in the refugee program, but every week now I receive an email from a student who's a refugee saying, I've got a job, or I've got an internship, or I've got a job interview. And it can be literally life-changing for them to have these opportunities. And we give the credit to SNHU to give them this opportunity to earn an accredited degree, and to our mentors who guide them through to get them ready for those job opportunities. And you know, there's no illusions that there are shortcuts to jobs in these kinds of situations. It's a very tough job market, obviously. But in summary, we want to make sure that our students have distinguished themselves amongst the general candidate population. And this is one way that they can do that. So just fantastic, Nadia. I'm just so glad to be working with you on that. So let's turn our attention to designing a mentorship program, because this is one of the key points of the webinar today. And then after this, we're going to talk about where we think mentorship is going in general, what we think our program is going to do as well to respond to changes in the global environment, which we definitely want to talk about. So we've had an opportunity to design a program that we hoped from the very beginning would be larger scale. And so we started building it with that in mind. And so just some of the tips and tricks that we've learned, sometimes we've learned the hard way over the last few years, but there is a sea of mentorship programs out there, all mostly from nonprofits like ourselves. And in order to get some attention, you need to be different. You need to have a specific niche that will allow you to cultivate and work on a sector of the population that's going to be interested in what you do. Don't try to be all things to all people. In the case of GMI, we have decided we are going to focus on graduating students who are underserved in areas of high employment with a specific goal of getting them ready to find a job and making links to job opportunities as well. So that's our specific mission. It makes it easy to articulate in a couple of sentences, as you saw earlier in the presentation. I can't stress how important guiding principles are and to develop them as early as possible when you're formulating your strategy. Guiding principles are the things that you will do, the things that you will do in 6 months from now, the things you will do 5 years from now. Because if you are successful, companies, people are going to ask you to do a lot of things that differ from your original mission. And you need to know exactly how that does or does not fit in with your strategy. That will keep you from trying to boil the ocean and then lead you to unexpected consequences. Structure. There are really no shortcuts when you think about structure. We spent 9 months in prep before our first pilot mentorships in South Africa, building a curriculum, building one for scale, building one that we think crosses cultures as much as possible, and then testing it and seeing where it failed. And this takes time, but you don't want to have to pick up and do these things right in the middle of a mentorship launch or a year down the road. On that vein, failure points. You are going to have failure points that you don't know where they are right now. The idea is to try to find as many of them early in the process, even before you start. Whatever could possibly go wrong is going to go wrong in a mentorship program, especially as it grows and gets larger. And doing it up front is going to take extra time, and it's going to take extra expense. But in a way, you only get one opportunity to launch. You get one opportunity to make that presentation in front of a foundation. You want to make sure that you really have everything in order before you do that. So this one's super important. Make it easy for mentors, because this is where mentor programs often they fail to get off the ground, or they never scale as they're expected to. Mentors, you have to put yourself in their position. Think of JT. He knew we had a mentorship program. It was a selling. He had to know what he was buying into, though. They have to know what their time commitments are, and they have to feel confident that they can succeed in a mentorship. So here's an example. We debated. We've hit on 14 one-hour sessions between a mentor and a student, and we debated, should that be 7 sessions? Should it be 12? There were discussions about having 20 sessions or having a 6-month or a 1-year program. And it came down to what was going to drive the most success for the program and the most value for the student. And that is a balancing act. Of course, we could have 20 sessions. The trade-off would be we'd have a higher dropout rate of students because it's too many sessions, too long. And we would also have a much harder time recruiting mentors for the program. So 14 sessions right now feels right for us. It feels like it's a good balance. And then, of course, mentors and students can continue working together if they want on their own afterwards. As part of this making it easy process, we went to the extreme. We give mentors templates even for communicating with their students. Most mentors are saying the exact same thing when they communicate with a student in email, so we give them a template, saves them some time. They know that they're doing, they're doing it the right way. Remote mentorships, just like working from home, in this pandemic environment, this is going to be the way of the future. And if you want a global audience of participants, of mentors and students, you have to consider what a video conferencing system might, that process might be better. Now, I'll just briefly touch on the nonprofit strategy. We tried to run our strategy, our business strategy. We're a 501c3, but we run it as a for-profit business because it helps you make the right decisions for the longevity of the company. When we think about supply and demand and supply chain, our students are our supply. The demand for the mentorship is the mentors, and we have to have a balance. Which is something Chad and his team works on all the time. We've got to have the right number of students coming in for the right number of mentors, and mentors can get stale if they're just waiting for a match, and especially if we're not communicating with them in the process. And in some ways, you have to view this as a supply chain. You've got to get the product in the pipeline and then get the customer signed up. And so, in this case, the product is the supply of students that we have for the mentors. One example, just is very timely. Just this week, we received 120 new students from University of West Indies in Kingston, Jamaica. And we'll have mentors, because we have a pipeline set up, we'll have mentors for most of them within 3 weeks, already matched and connected. So you have to look at, is your program going to be seasonal as well? And you have to adjust your marketing and your strategy based on that. Really quickly, knowing your customer is so important. When I talk about knowing your customer, that is the mentor in this case. Understand what motivates them to sign up with you. Real quick example, we just launched, late last year, we launched a program in Dakar, Senegal with UCAD, the University of Dakar. This is a bilingual student group. And we thought it's a great way to start in a new country is by focusing on mentors who are expats from that country. So we reached out to the right LinkedIn professional groups, made some personal connections. And it's just amazing how many people who are from Senegal living in the United States would like to mentor a student at a college they went to or in the city that they grew up in. That's a great way to test to make sure that your mentorship program works in a new culture when you're introducing it. Knowing who and who will not sponsor you, so you don't spend a lot of time on the wrong candidate. There are companies that are really interested in what you do, and your challenge is to find that. And then lastly on this, as a for-profit business, you've got to provide customer support, or you'll lose customers and you'll lose reputation. In this case, your customer is your mentor. If you don't have robust processes with clear user instructions, an owner's manual, if you will, they're going to have problems and they're going to have a less than perfect experience. So you have to build in customer support. So we're going to change gears here a little bit as well. And I just want to say a little bit about where we're going from here. When we started this company, we did some research, and one statistic did stick in my head, and it's over their lifetime, a South African college student or someone with a degree in South Africa earns on average about $360,000 US more than someone who only graduated with a high school diploma. And in fact, they earn 8 times more than the average worker in their country. So this is an interesting stat, but real. A typical South African college graduate could earn almost $1 million US in their career. But in order to earn that $1 million, they need to have good jobs that leverage their education. And this is where the issue is. There's so many young people out there in underserved, higher unemployment communities with college degrees, but without a prospect for this career. And so over the last 2 years, I'll share my screen here. Over the last 2 years, we've seen some pretty good growth at GMI. And sometimes, Chad will testify to this, it's kind of like holding on to a fire hose. And it's all about how much we're willing to or able to turn on the nozzle. 1,000 mentorships this year is our low end number. And right now we see it'll likely go much higher. In fact, we've got a line of sight to a larger scale program that's 8 to 10 times larger now within just the next 3 to 4 years. So we actually see a path to 10,000 mentorships by the end of 2024. And it's important to consider the global workforce and how it's changing when we think about this mentorship strategy. Globalization and technology have really transformed business strategies and have caused a significant change in hiring models. And this pandemic has caused a change in hiring models. And if a student's just entering the job market now, it's already a different environment than what their education has likely prepared them for. There was a study 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, showed that the average corporate job opening attracts about 250 resumes. And I'm sure Justin can attest to that at Microsoft. Of those candidates, only about 5 are going to get called in for an interview. And of course, only one gets the job. So now, after COVID-19, companies are learning that where someone works is becoming less and less important. And this is the key learning that we've seen in the past 12 months. So how does that transition for the job market? So could we see the number of candidates for a single job grow by 5 times, so that that number of 250 resumes, maybe that actually becomes 1,250 resumes from all over the world? With so many people working remotely, location is much less of a factor now in determining success. And this is where a mentorship like GMI comes in. By providing them with networking skills, a solid resume, interview skills, and importantly, this is key, business connections. We encourage our students to connect with at least 500 business professionals on LinkedIn during their mentorship, before they start their job search, and at companies where they want to apply. And there's many reasons to do this to bring success. So it's these business connections that actually get a disadvantaged student access to stand out among the 250 or the 1,250 job applicants that they're going to be competing against. We know at GMI that we cannot get them a job. It's their skills, their knowledge, their motivation that's going to do that. But our goal specifically is to get them in that group of 5 people who are being interviewed. And then we want them to be well prepared for that interview. We also believe that these mentorships should reflect the global work environment. We know cultural differences exist, but it's really these differences and it's this diversity that makes us stronger as a workforce. So, and then I want to reiterate that our approach is grounded in structure and process. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end to the program. And there's a reason that 75% of our mentors ask for another student when they complete their first mentorship. That's one of our key metrics that we look at as a gauge of success. So how do we fund a program? How does anybody fund a mentorship program like this? First and foremost, you have to know where you can be successful and where you will not. And for us, there is no charge for the mentor, the student, or the college to be in the program. So it's really the generosity that comes from our mentors is how they donate their time. And it's one of the biggest ways we fund the program. In fact, 15,000 hours were donated to GMI in time in the last 12 months. And the second way we're funded is through our corporate sponsorships. And this comes in many forms. Some organizations can support us by giving access to their employees as mentors. And still others sponsor the program through a financial donation. Right now, we're only limited in the ability to scale in these ways. So how can we work together? Everybody that's on the call today has an opportunity to work together with us. First of all, we want your help in recruiting mentors. And I promise they'll have a great experience. I mentioned a minute ago about how many mentors sign up for a second mentorship. And secondly, we want your help with access to underserved student populations. We're growing so fast right now. I mentioned we're adding 2 to 3 colleges a month. We need access to these students to do this. Third, we want your access to organizations and influencers of people like you, because we want to be able to share the GMI story with them. Fourth, you can help us. We have an ultimate goal in this mentorship, and that is to take these students who have been prepared for job opportunities and connect them to our business partners to actually realize job opportunities. Our partners want to hire these students not only because of their diversity, but because they are well prepared with their degree and their business mentorship that most students just don't get that opportunity. And then fifth, your generosity. If you can sponsor mentorships and help support the scaling of the program, that's just fantastic. So before we wrap up, we've got a few minutes and we're glad to take questions. So Namita or Kasha, we'll let you kind of guide us in this.
Thank you, John. That was really interesting. And I'm sure people will have questions. I see a few comments in the chat box, but maybe I'll start with a couple of questions from my side. As you know, most of our audience quickly wants to know the how. And most of our sessions are more about sort of the how and the nuts and the bolts of how does one design it. I think it's most of our audience, you can assume, understands the importance of mentorship. So I don't think there's a question there. So I was curious about your intake process. It sounded to me like most of your beneficiaries or mentees, you are getting your mentees mostly from colleges and university. And so I was curious whether you've explored other types of institutions or other types of places where some of your mentees could be sourced from, if I may use the word, and maybe TVET institutions, because typically we'd see most poor and vulnerable youth who really need the mentoring, where there is a complete gap right now, is those people, and not the college educated and university. Not that they don't need mentoring, but I guess I'm just speaking on sort of behalf of my colleagues in the World Bank, for example, who would be particularly working with that section of youth. So I was curious whether you've explored that and what that model might look like. And then I was wondering whether this is free, and you already answered that question, that this is free. And then the second question I had was on the other side, on the corporate side. What is your pitch to them? Are they individuals who are mentors, or are they representatives of corporations who are mentors? Like, in what capacity do they do this? And is it simply the goodness of their heart that brings them in, or what is that? What is it that sometimes? And I heard Justin talk a little bit about it, but what has your experience been? I mean, are there examples where corporations, as a corporation, they take a decision that X amount of time of their employees would be given to let's say mentoring, and so it's an internally rewarding activity as well. So if you could talk a little bit about it, and then just to take us through what those 14 steps might look like. Let's say I've been selected for your mentorship process. Now what happens?
Okay.
What is
You might have to prompt me to remember some of those questions.
Okay, sorry.
So let me start at the very beginning, though. Our students. Yes, we work with universities. We target students who are considered underserved in the countries where they live, and that means something different in every country. We also work with organizations that provide us students who may be not part of a mainstream university, but nevertheless are trying to get an education to get prepared for a job. And so we, for example, we work with a Native American funding group that works with students all across the United States who are Native Americans, and they are brought into the mentorship, and we're working with groups in Africa, for example, that have diverse students that are in different parts of the country, but who are maybe funded or on scholarship, but aren't part of a single college. Now, getting to the point, our guiding principles, going back to that, is we do work specifically with students who are in college, and we work to make them top job prospects as they're getting ready to leave college. Now, when we think about on the other side of that, there's a benefit for companies and corporates that want to work with us, because they are getting access to these students as they're graduating. And so that is our target group right now, students. And when we drafted our guiding principles, we've got a longer term plan to increase this program and make it a larger scale. Maybe someday work with high school students, because everybody could benefit from these skills. I'll go to the other question about what's in it for mentors and companies. In addition to the opportunity to hire some of these students, which is fantastic, I would say that most of our mentors are doing this for altruistic reasons. They're looking for a way to give back, but they also don't want to get into a program that's going to consume their life, and it's going to take up all of their time and be a long-term commitment. So we think we found a sweet spot with these 14 sessions. And I'll tell you, I'll answer your question about those sessions here in a second. But I think it's just wonderful how many people from the countries where we have students who want to be part of the program, or just part of the program in the US in general, just sign up. It's the easiest thing I've ever sold in my life, is to ask somebody to be a mentor to the program. Corporates, now to your question, yes, we have companies that provide groups of mentors. This is a CSR experience. It's something that benefits the company along their sustainable development goals. And right there on the screen there. We focus on SDGs 4, 5, 8, and 10. And if that matches up with a company and their CSR goals, then we're a great fit for them. In fact, we just last week, we had a company in the US sign up 20 mentors from their company. We organized that with them to make it very easy to do. Namita, did you want me to just briefly talk about what's in the sessions a little bit more?
No, I realize that I monopolized the questions, and I do want to turn to Andrew, who has a question on scale. Andrew, did you want to just type it in the chat box in the interest of time? And then there's another question from David, who asks a question about, have you ever considered using your mentees as mentors themselves? And so while Andrew types his question in the chat box, maybe you can address David's question.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And Sanithya, be prepared to become a mentor for us very soon. That is, we didn't get into our long-term staying in connection with students. But we survey them at 6 months, 12 months, 24 months after the program. And it's in that 24-month survey that we start asking them about if they'd like to have a more stronger role in GMI and to actually give back. They make great mentors because they know exactly what the program's about.
Andrew, did you want to just ask your question out loud? I see you have a question about scale, right?
Yeah, thanks. I think maybe that's quicker. So education for employment focuses on very similar goals that you are, John, in the Middle East and North Africa. And we do not have a mentorship component to what we do. We do a lot of soft skills training and connecting youth to employers. We have a network of 3,000 to 4,000 employer partners in the MENA region. We serve 17 to 20,000 youth every year.
I'm sorry, Andrew, I'm going to ask you to be concise in your question. I do want to get to the other questions. Yeah.
The question is, scale has been the daunting factor for us. And so I'm appreciating that you are taking scale on in the design process. But when you look at numbers like 17 to 20,000 and focused on a particular region, how would you think about going about that challenge, starting incrementally and building, or you're talking about getting it right the first time, which I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I'm seeing a few of our mentors on. I see their shining faces on the screen, so I want to say hi to all of our mentors that have joined us. And we're glad if you have a comment or something like that. There's Kathy, Bill, Miller, and I saw Winnie. So to answer your question, process and structure is so important about this. And yes, you start incrementally, and really you start location by location. We've got to be very careful not to boil the ocean. But let me go back to infrastructure. That is the foundation of this. And we are actually looking at a new program with Microsoft to help us drive scalability, because there's a point where you have too many mentorships in process for the labor that you have, and you either have to add more labor to handle those, or you take on more infrastructure. And so we're at that point now where we're taking on more infrastructure. The key though here is having companies involved that want to actually make job opportunities available to these students. And they will do it because it's good for their business. Because not only does it add diversity, but these are students that you hope will hit the ground running because they've had this 4-month boot camp with a business professional to get them ready for the job world. Just quickly, one of the things we teach our students towards the end of the program is what are the distinguishing characteristics of employees that seem to be more promotable than the rest of us? What are the soft skills they use? How do they do them? How do they make the right first impressions with their peers, their boss? How do you balance being a leader in an organization and being a strong team player at the same time? And those are the types of skills that I think companies want to introduce into their workforce.
All right.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you. I think we've run out of time. There were a couple more questions, but then there are lots of comments in the chat box, but we've run out of time, unfortunately. But we're happy to continue the conversation. And if any of you felt like you needed like something specific addressed, we are happy to connect you with John and team. So thank you all for joining and spending an hour with us this morning or afternoon for some of you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Nadia. And thank you, Justin. And thank you all so much. We will share the recording and the slides with all of you, and look forward to seeing you again in our next session.
Thank you so much, Namita.
Thank you. Thank you very much.